Sometimes in discussions on artificial intelligence, the idea is put forward that since a brain is conscious, therefore an artificial brain, known as a computer, may also become conscious. From the perspective of yoga philosophy, called Sankhya, or simulation theory, there is no such thing as a conscious brain or a conscious computer. After all, both the brain and computer are simply part of the simulation, and the conscious person experiencing the simulation is always situated outside it in ground reality. For example, a person sitting in their bedroom may put on an Oculus VR headset and experience a simulated world, but the conscious human being remains in their bedroom. The conscious element is coming from outside the simulation. Similarly, if this whole world is in fact a simulation, as put forward by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and Kapila in the Bhagavat Purana, as well as famous Western philosophers like Plato and Descartes, then the conscious element is coming from some ground reality beyond the veil of our current sensory awareness. Consciousness is never coming from within the simulation, neither from brain or computer. All right, hello my friends. So today we're going to explore from the perspective of the yoga tradition, specifically Sankhya philosophy. The Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavat Purana and so on are predicated on or directly presenting the ontology. In the modern world we would call it the ontology of yoga, which is called Sankhya. And Sankhya is basically presenting that this world is Maya, or this world is an illusion, is a simulation, that we are not from here, that we are situated in some ground reality, and that we are connected up to something like a machine, something like a simulation, a virtual world, and that this experience that we're having here is in fact a simulated experience. So, for example, actually I'll link that in the description below. In the third canto of the Bhagavat Purana, Sankhya philosophy is explained comprehensively by a great sage, you could say, called Kapila. And he's actually explaining that to his mother. And or, for example, in Bhagavad Gita, you find Krishna in the 18th chapter, text 61, saying, Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. So, Sarva Bhutani, all living beings. Sarva means all, Bhutani, living beings. Yantra means machine, Rudhani, riding. All living beings are riding on the machine, Maya, made of Maya, made of the illusion, made of the simulation. So whether it's Plato or Descartes or Elon Musk or Patanjali or Krishna or Vyasadeva or Jiva Goswami or whoever it is, there are sort of essential components, common components for all the models of simulation theory. They are basically three. That there is something like a ground reality. There are conscious living beings situated in ground reality who are of a nature that they experience ground reality through a sensory capacity. So they see, hear, taste, touch, and smell it, and perhaps some internal sense also. And when you have these two things, ground reality and conscious beings experiencing their true self and ground reality through a sensory capacity, there arises the possibility that those conscious beings could have their senses blocked so that they could not see ground reality or their true self. They could not hear ground reality or their true self. Rather, you can project into their senses or onto their senses or into their sensory capacity a simulated world, simulated sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell. Now in the yoga tradition, or in the Sankhya philosophy, These are called the Gyan Indriyas, the knowledge acquiring senses. So Jnana goes into the Greco-Roman classical culture as gnosis, Gnosis, gnosis. And that, I believe, is cognate with our English knowledge. So jnana, knowledge, indriyas, senses, the knowledge acquiring senses, how we are receiving information from this simulated world around us. And then in the yoga tradition, in Sankhya philosophy, there are also karmindriyas. Now, karma, we all know that word, karma, sort of action and reaction on a metaphysical level. For example, someone like Isaac Newton is presenting that in the physical realm, there is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So karma is simply an extension of that idea that on the metaphysical realm, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If we hurt, we will be hurt. If we lie, we will be lied to. If we speak the truth, we will be told the truth or understand the truth. If we do good, we will receive good, etc. So karma literally just means action, from the root word kri, to make, to create, to act. So karma just means action. But because every action in this world has an equal and opposite reaction, therefore karma comes to mean this system of action-reaction. So the karma indriyas are the way that the conscious living beings situated in ground reality are acting out into the simulation. For example, of course, they could act out in ground reality also. So what does that mean? In other words, we can move here in the simulation. We have a body, we can walk around, or we can get in a car, or ride a horse, or get in an airplane, if it wasn't COVID time. So that ability to move within the simulation is a karma indriya. For example, a child can play, or anybody can play a video game, which is a sort of low-tech virtual reality experience, and they may be playing some character there, some two-dimensional array of pixels in the shape of a character, maybe like a hero with a gun or something like that, and they can move that character around in that virtual world, in that video game, or in that simulated game, in that simulated world environment. So that ability to move, the ability to speak into the simulation, the ability, like with the arms, to manipulate and grasp and manipulate the environment here, all these are karma indriyas. So the way, from the perspective of Sankhya philosophy, the conscious living beings situated in ground reality are interfaced into this simulated world in such a way that they receive information through the Gyan Indriyas, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and can act out into, influence and affect the simulated world through the Karma Indriyas, through these action senses. We don't talk like that in English, that, the arms are senses, but they're thinking like that. So when we consider the analogy of, let's say, a person playing a video game or experiencing, maybe going into their lounge room, putting on an Oculus, a sort of headset, and they're entering into a virtual landscape. They are always, the conscious living being, the person, is actually always situated in their lounge room. Or the person playing a video game in their bedroom is always in their bedroom. They're never actually in the simulated world. The simulated world is, in fact, illusory. For example, the person playing a video game is just looking at a two-dimensional array of pixels on a screen that simulates a world environment. But it's still always just a two-dimensional array of pixels. So when they see that character on the screen, or when they put on the Oculus and they look down and see their simulated body, or holding a simulated gun in front of them, something like that, everything there is simply a two-dimensional or three-dimensional array of pixels. We would not expect any organization of those array of pixels to ever become conscious. The conscious element in simulation theory is always situated in ground reality. So let's take some young man playing Grand Theft Auto. So they're playing some character and they're running around there, and they enter into a room. And in that room is other persons, let's say other humans. And those humans are actually just two-dimensional arrays of pixels, but they appear like human beings with a brain. That brain would never become conscious. We would not expect that scientifically or reasonably. And if there's a computer or a robot in that room, that computer or robot, we would never expect to manifest consciousness. The conscious element experiencing that virtual world is actually sitting in his bedroom behind the computer or in front of the computer. The conscious element in a virtual environment is never actually situated in the virtual environment. The conscious element, the conscious person, is always situated in their bedroom or their lounge room or whatever. They are situated in ground reality. So similarly, from the perspective of yoga, nothing here, whether it's in the shape of a computer, a three-dimensional array of pixels, or a robot, a three-dimensional array of pixels, or a mushy gray matter brain, a three-dimensional array of pixels, if this is a simulation, none of these things would ever be conscious. The conscious person, us, we, the conscious living beings, are always situated in ground reality. We are not here. Therefore, when it comes to artificial intelligence or something like that, some ideas like that, we would never have to be concerned that a computer or a robot or a brain would ever become conscious. Because after all, the conscious living being is not part of the simulation. The conscious living being in simulation theory is always coming from ground reality, always situated in ground reality, exactly the same way as the kid playing Grand Theft Auto is always situated in front of his computer in his bedroom. He's not actually in the game. And anything he sees in that simulated two-dimensional array of pixels, whether in the shape of a computer, a robot, a tree, a house, a car, or a brain, would never be conscious. It's just a two-dimensional array of pixels. Similarly, this three-dimensional array of pixels, or this field of energy, the unified field, or this field of frequency, would never manifest consciousness. Consciousness, the conscious living being, the conscious element, is not from here. The conscious living being is always coming from outside, always situated in ground reality. So, I hope that little presentation was interesting for you. This little presentation has been derived from Dr. Richard Thompson's book, Maya, The World is Virtual Reality, and is based upon the yoga literature like Yoga Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavat Purana. I will leave a link to all of those books in the description below. Thank you for listening. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, share it with your friends. All right. Thank you very much.